The Carolina Panthers, they need to figure out something to do at quarterback, but you didn't have one to get in free agency, trades, whatever. The opportunity just never presented itself, despite the fact that, all the reports say the Carolina Panthers chased after Deshaun Watson.
Well, that was never happening, and it never made a whole lot of sense to give up that much draft capital when you don't have that much to begin with.
Right. You get shut out of the second and third rounds of this 2022 NFL draft, but you do have that one pick.
As a Jets fan, thanks for that, by the way.
But you do have that one pick, the number 6 overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. So how will they use it? This is the post-free agency 7-round mock draft for the Carolina Panthers here from the Ingalls studio. And at number 6 overall, Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pittsburgh. Little tiny hands.
Little Donald Trump hands himself. I need to specify, I'm not saying this is what I would do. I'm saying this is what I think Carolina is going to do. Look, I've been doing this for a minute. There have been a slew of quarterbacks in my life, Chris Winkie, Brandon Whedon, that I have seen not be elite quarterbacks until they are drastically older than everybody they play against. And that is what I see in Kenny Pickett. He was a 4th-round prospect coming into this year. Mm-hmm. Now, David Tepper's fallen in love with him. My comp on him, I think he is a really high-level Colt McCoy. But when the owner falls in love with a guy, you have to give some credence to that. And I do think with the weapons that you have, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffery, you need a point guy that is not going to turn the ball over. And I do think you can get that out of Kenny Pickett. I think his ceiling it would be lower than any 6th overall pick I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. But I also think his floor is pretty damn high too. The age concerns me. He's not as accurate as everybody makes him out to be. And there's a lot of red flags to me with Kenny Pickett. He is the safest quarterback in this draft outside of Sam Howell. To me, that's what I would do. If I'm Carolina, I would have fallen in love with Sam Howell because I think that he is the player that both has the upside and the safe floor. That's not where they're at. Now, I think no matter who this selection is, they're going to have Matt Rule for a year. The defense is good and young and talented. You fix the line, and I just look at all these things and go, okay, so where are you now? In a bad NFC, my biggest fear is they make the playoffs and they don't let Rule go. Because I do believe with Kenny Pickett and all of the assets that you have, this would be an attractive job a year from now. The Sam Darnold deal comes off, and I think this is more of an intriguing spot than it was this year. That's why they kept him. Now, it's very obvious to me that Scott Fitterer is the one that's pulling the purse strings now. The Bradley Bozeman deal was fantastic. I like that they went and got Corey Littleton. Mm-hmm. But you still have a huge hole at quarterback. I've heard they're in on Dwayne Brown, so I don't think this will be an offensive lineman as I had. That's what all of the moves are signaling to me. You're taking care of all these offensive line problems. Okay, then what are you going to take at 6? You're set at corner, so it's not Sauce. You've invested in the edge. So it's not Thibodeau. It's not any. All right, so what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. And I know somebody's going to say, well, would we trade down? Well, the problem is that you're going to have to find somebody that wants to trade up. And that's going to be drastically harder to do than people think.
Yeah.
I know people have talked about Pittsburgh. Why in the hell would Pittsburgh trade up to get Malik Willis? Doesn't make any sense.
No, sit at 20 and see which one comes to you.
Well, I mean,
if you're
even
going to
then,
take a quarterback
I don't
at all.
think you take a quarterback. I mean, I understand they're enamored with Malik Willis. Carolina, by the way, they're in not love with Malik Willis. Mm-hmm. If they're taking a quarterback, I've heard it's Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
So, and he's the one that could come in and start right away. If you play Malik Willis this year, you're doing it wrong. And Carolina thinks in the shitty NFC they are competitive. They don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they could make the playoffs. And that's what everybody in that organization's goal is right now because they want to keep their jobs.
Yeah. They could definitely be competitive in the NFC, but you got to have the quarterback. And so if the pick is Kenny Pickett at 6, he starts right away. Sam Darnold just rides the bench.
I don't I don't see a way you would take him at 6 and then trot Darnold back out there.
That's
now,
what
I'll be honest with you, I like Darnold better than Pickett, and I don't really think it's all that close. Darnold has had a lot of instability, and he's very quickly sliding into that David Carr syndrome of, I don't think you're a bad quarterback, you've just never been put in a position to succeed, and now it's broken you. If they took Kenny Pickett, yes, I do believe he would be the starter day one.
All right, like I said, they get shut out of the second and the third rounds because of trades.
Thanks again.
In the fourth round, they have the 137th overall pick. You got him taking a tackle, Braxton Jones out of Southern Utah.
I really believe if he had played at a bigger school, he would be going drastically higher. Didn't have the most impressive Senior Bowl week that you've ever seen, but there's a lot of raw to really like with this kid. He's 6'7", 305, and ran a sub 540. Hyper athletic. There's some technique things to roll out. He's a better, I would say when he comes in the league, he's going to be a better run blocker off the jump than he is pass blocker. He has that I'm 6'7" problem of leverage really messes with him, but he's a developmental piece. To me, this is a tandem. You go get Dwayne Brown or Eric Fisher or whatever your solution is on the left side, with the intention of Braxton Jones will be the left tackle a year from now, 2 years from now. And I think he's got really good high upside. It's just going to take some time to pull that out of him.
2 picks in the fifth round for the Carolina Panthers. The first one at 144 overall, Reggie Robertson Jr., wide receiver from SMU.
This is one of the better deep ball receivers in this draft. And this is a little bit of I fully believe Robbie Anderson's not going to be on this team. There's too many teams that were interested in him. New England kicked the tires at one point. I know the Jets have had an interest in revisiting that. Please, God, don't do that.
He did just restructure the contract. Was that to make him more palatable to another team?
Possibly. And he restructured. Now, a fun story. What team in the NFL has the most cap space right now?
Is it Indiana or Indianapolis?
Carolina Panthers. They have the most cap space in the NFL.
Wow.
With the restructures and things like that. So I think there are things coming. Even if Robbie Anderson stays on the team this year, which the restructure makes that more likely, it's not a guarantee. The money is not that different than it was. What screwed Reggie Robertson is that he didn't run as fast as we thought he would. He ran a 4.6. Well, for a deep ball receiver, that kind of
doesn't look good.
These two things do not work in tandem.
Right.
But he's the exact opposite of Devin Smith. I don't know if you remember Devin Smith. He was a receiver out of Ohio State. He had a couple games for the Cowboys. He was a huge bust to the Jets. He could get past anybody because he was blindingly fast. Problem is he couldn't track the ball to save his life. Reggie Robertson does a great job of that. I think in the NFL he translates to be more of that Deebo Samuel role of you're going to move him around, and he is scary enough that if you scheme it to where teams are afraid of just getting the ball in his hands, because he is very good with the ball in his hands, then it opens up the fact that 4.6 is no longer a death sentence in the NFL. I think he would be an asset to a young quarterback. I still like Shi Smith. I still like Terrace Marshall. And you just, re-upped DJ Moore for the long haul. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure some people will see it as weird that I'm adding another receiver. It's a long-term play.
At 149 in the fifth round, Doug Kramer, a center out of Illinois.
I like this kid a lot. And I'll be honest with you, seeing the Bradley Bozeman signing, you're not signing him next year for what you got him for this year. Why the market died on him, I do not know. But you got him on a song. Doug Kramer is a young version of Bradley Bozeman. He's not a great pass blocker. Never has been. Was never asked to be a great pass blocker. Could he become one? Maybe. He has some leverage issues. He's a little, for as big as he is, he's a little finesse for me. But in the run game, he can be that road grader. To me, he sits behind Bradley Bozeman. He's the insurance policy behind Bozeman and becomes most likely the starting center a year from now.
In the sixth round at 199 overall, Mikhail Wright, cornerback from Oregon.
He has great feet. And that's probably the nicest thing I can say about him. He's hyper athletic. He's another one of those that falls into that. He's more athlete than he is football player. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that all of the raw of it, Where super athletic corners get fucked up is their feet don't work in tandem with their brain. He didn't have that problem. Where he has the problem is he's one of those 90%ers of he does 90% of the things right on the play, then the action actually comes to him and he can't make the tackle. So you did everything right until you didn't do it right, and it makes you look bad. I'm afraid that the aggressiveness that he plays with is going to make it to where there's going to be a lot of good plays. But I could see him being picked on because he is hyper-aggressive. But he's hyper-aggressive because he's hyper undersized. 5'11", $175 is a tiny little corner, especially one that ran a 4.57. That's why he's still available here. The tape on him is good enough that he should have gone before this. To me, if you could combine Dante Jackson and Mikhail Wright into the same person, they would be the greatest living corner that ever lived. Because everything that Dante Jackson does is everything Mikhail Wright doesn't do, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And they can get him in the 6th round at 199 overall. And then, last pick of the draft for the Panthers, as it currently stands, is at 242nd in the 7th round. Monterey Brown, another corner out of Arkansas.
Not a corner. He was a corner at Arkansas. Okay. I do not think he'll be a corner in the NFL. Safety. His back pedal is not good enough. The 4.55 was reasonably impressive. That told me he can probably play safety. He has good enough size. I wish he was just a hair bigger for what it is that I'm wanting to do here, because in zone, he's tremendous. Where he gets picked on is in man. Now, playing safety in the NFL, at this point, you have to have at least a precursory ability to play man, and he really doesn't. I think it was Ole Miss. They figured out he can't defend a double move at all. I mean, drug him down the sidewalk. And as I watch that tape, I'm going, you're not a corner in this league. You're talented enough. Really, really good at the point of attack, good ball hawking defensive back, and pretty good against the run. The problem is that I don't know how you fix what I saw in that one specific scenario. I think he would be a nice tandem with Jeremy Chinn. He would be a special teams player to start, with the intention of growing him into this role.
So he's the spell guy at that strong safety position.
I think he actually translates to a free safety.
Okay.
But there are ways to mitigate that. The NFL is getting more multiple by the day.
So could he develop into the eventual replacement for Xavier Woods, who they just signed?
Yes.
Okay.
He could in a single high. And that allows Jeremy Chinn to do more of the things that you want him to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, Jeremy Chinn's one of the best players on this team. So dropping him in deep coverage is just really not using his skills to the best of their ability. I think this kid could be the single high, but it's going to take some time because it's a completely new position. But it takes all of the things he does well and emphasizes those and cuts out what he doesn't do well.
Panther fans, some were very, very devastated when the Deshaun Watson thing did not happen. It was a pipe dream.
You shouldn't be.
That's where I was headed with this. This was a blessing. This was a blessing to be able to give you the opportunity not to further gut your team for the future, and let's try to build something here. And they'll start it all off, as Jeremy says, David Tepper, when the owner is in love with a player, you almost have to take him. So at number 6, it all starts with Kenny Pickett, and hopefully that is the quarterback that they've been looking for since the early days of Cam Newton.
And I'm not down on Kenny Pickett. I'm just not as high on him as everybody else is. If you like these picks, if you don't like these picks, if you think I'm a big mulleted ginger man bun dipshit and you could do better, throw your mock draft in the comments, throw your questions in the comments. If there's a player you would like to know how they fit with the Carolina Panthers, you can also comment those out. I go through and answer those every day. And one of I have really enjoyed seeing the mock drafts from the viewers of this. It is shocking to me how much smarter the average fan is today than they were 10 years ago. When I started doing this, it would be dumbfounding how bad a fan's mock draft was.
discovered the man bun last week, and he's already embraced it as his own.
It's so wonderful. So wonderful.
This has been the post-free agency 7-round mock draft for the Carolina Panthers here in the Sportsocracy. We're always coming to you from the Ingles studio. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you get all of our team-by-team content throughout the Draftmas season, and you can join us every weekday live at 3 o'clock. Again, here from the Ingles studio. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Jeremy Greene. See you next time.